It's time for Northwest Georgia Sports Live on Talk Radio WLAQ AM 1410 and the new 96.9 FM. Here's your hosts, Matt Davis and Ian Griffin.
You know what, man? That actually kind of reminds me of Sprockets. And now we dance.
And now is the time on Sprockets. Velvet dance.
Exactly. There you go. I know I was a little off there, but close enough anyway.
But you need the slim black pants and the turtleneck with the sleeves pulled up. Dita. Yes.
Yeah, no, probably not going to do that. I'm not sure that would be wonderful for ratings, but
be a good look for you, man.
It does kind of have that vibe to it a little bit. I've realized.
No doubt.
A little bit.
No doubt.
Well, it's the part of the show that, sometimes is not my favorite part, but this week it is. So, Ian, you did the honors last week. Well, how did we do last week?
Well, Matt, I didn't do as well as I did in week one. I was undefeated, and I put my money on the Cass Colonels, and they almost pulled it off in a great game, lost by a point at the Rock Mart.
Didn't they go for two at the end of the game?
Yeah. So, which I love. I
do too.
I love it. Love that decision by the coaching staff. You're on the road, try to win the game. But I fell just short, and you took the Yellow Jackets. We were both torn in that game. We knew it was going to be close. It doesn't get much closer. But you got the W, and you cut my lead from 2 games to 1.
I'm laughing because I'm getting text messages from Nathan Patters from Northwest Georgia Media, and he heard our reference to Sprockets.
Okay.
And he's throwing out a couple of lines, but I'll just say, Nathan, this is a family show. I'm not going to repeat what you just sent me in the text message, but anybody of a certain age that watched that show during that time could probably guess, some of the things he just sent.
It was the golden era, in my opinion. That was as great as Saturday Night Live ever got. I mean, you had the early days with Steve Martin and all those guys, but man, Mike Myers and Adam Sandler and Chris Farley, good Phil Hartman, just an amazing cast.
Oh, no question about it. So last week I went 7-2. You were 6-3. So you have a 1-game lead. There's the good news for you. You're still in front at 15-3 overall. I'm 14-4 at this point, and who knows? There's a pretty interesting slate of games that we're going to talk about for week 3.
Yeah, some tough ones to pick, and again, we're still in the process of figuring things out as far as who's got what. We're basing it off like opponents and having to do a lot of research because the teams we know so well are playing teams we don't know so well. So.
And we're a day early on this.
Yeah.
As you may have noticed, if you're tuning in, it's like, man, is it Thursday? No, you're on track. It is actually Wednesday, but this week needed to make a little bit of adjustment to the schedule so we could get the show in. And so we'll be back at our regular time coming up next week, and should be pretty much for the most of the season at that point.
That's
doing
right.
Picks on Thursdays.
I appreciate you accommodating me so I can get the heck out of town for a few days.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a little bit of R&R and to have some fun. So I hope that you have a special trip and enjoy your Labor Day weekend. I would imagine it's going to be an interesting situation being at the airport and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Been seeing the reports on the news and everything, how busy they're expecting it to be and all that kind of stuff. So
I'm shipping out tonight to get ahead of it, and I'm coming back Tuesday to get behind it. So that was my strategy.
We got a comment on our Facebook page. Austin Butler has chimed in. He said, another great Friday of football coming up this week. There are no secrets on who the heavyweight matchup is. Rome and Carrollton, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I was talking to Jim Allred, the voice of the Rome Wolves, yesterday. We were texting back and forth, and, I was asking him his thoughts on the game, so I picked his brain a little bit.
Okay. Well, I imagine you may reference that a little bit when we pick this game.
Absolutely. I imagine our thoughts are in line with Mr. Allred's.
Perhaps they are. Yeah. We'll see what happens. I went back and forth on that game quite a bit. But I will mention, out of the gate, we won't be talking much about Almerchi or Pepperell or Rockmart or Tryon this week because after the first 2 weeks of the season, they already get to enjoy a little R&R with a bye week. Although I would imagine there's not a lot of rest and relaxation. They're probably preparing for the next opponents and taking advantage of the additional time and all that kind of stuff to heal bumps and bruises and get ready for what's next.
Yeah, absolutely. But maybe they'll get to go enjoy their Labor Day weekend a little bit too.
Absolutely. So we're glad to have you with us. We've got a full slate of games to pick. And before we take our first break, let's kind of recap last weekend and, tell us some things that maybe stood out to you about week 2.
Tough loss for the Darlington Tigers at home against Sonoraville. You and I took that one in. I wasn't surprised by it. Like we already talked about, Cass and Rockmart. Heck of a game there. Was a little surprised. Right now, the Cartersville Hurricanes aren't scoring a ton of points. I think they're trying to find themselves on offense, but I imagine they will. So those are some of the things that have stood out to me through the first few weeks. I do think we have a better idea of who will be competing for region championships. One of those teams, the Model Blue Devils, got a huge win in Lindale, a commanding victory. That game was close at halftime, but Model dominated in the second half, and I think the Blue Devils are in store for a really, really good season.
I would agree with you on that. And, of course, they'll play again this week against a team that was a close game last year. We'll see if we predict it's going to be close again. The Woodland Wildcats come calling, and that could be an interesting matchup. We'll dive into that more in detail coming up in just a little bit. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we're going to start diving into this week's games. There's some interesting ones on there, so we've got a lot to talk about, and we're glad to have you along with us. And as we, do our broadcast today, I think we have the comments turned off on our YouTube, but if you're one of those folks that likes to chime in and kind of give input and things of that sort, we invite you to do that on our Facebook live feed. And so what you can do as we go along, if you want to give us your take on the games this weekend, your picks, we'd love to see what you have to say, and we'll talk about throughout the course of the show. Certainly an interactive show as everything we do on our Facebook Live. Well, we're glad to have you with us. We shall take a break. When we come back, we're going to sound the horn and get this thing rocking and rolling. I've kind of warmed up to the horn.
Yeah. Responsible horn use is important, but yes. Yeah, I think it fits.
As long as you don't overdo it, right?
Yeah.
We'll be back.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
All right, we're back, and we are ready to pick some games.
All right. Number one this week is a clash between the Gordon Central Warriors and the Coosa Eagles. Gordon Central lost last week narrowly to a Southeast Whitfield team that Coosa defeated narrowly. So I don't think these two teams are that far apart. But you've got Coosa playing at Branch Bragg Field. They're at home in front of their fans. I think that's definitely an advantage. I think they have a little more talent and depth. But I think this is close. Eagles win, though. Close.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup. It's an interesting series. Coosa leads at 6-5. They won last season. Fairly close game there, 33-21. Last week, Coosa couldn't get things moving in the right direction against Woodland. We kind of predicted that would happen because of the higher classification depth issues, all those sorts of things. And according to the RNT, turnovers were a big issue for the Eagles. And anytime you give up the rock, you're going to have some problems, especially when you're dealing with a school that's going to have more depth and maybe a couple of more playmakers than you have. So, you can't turn the ball over, make mistakes, and give the other team opportunities. Gordon Central, they've been in a tough spot. Let's face it. They have not won a game since they beat Dade County on November the 13th of 2020. So
Wow.
It's been a long time. They have lost 23 games in a row, if my math's correct. Last week came up a little bit short, as you mentioned, to Southeast Whitfield. So perhaps they're starting to gain some confidence and get a little momentum going. We'll see what happens. I think it is going to be a competitive game based on common opponents. But I'm kind of with you on this one. I think Coosa playing at home, I think they're a step ahead of Gordon Central at this point in time. So I'm going to go with Coosa to win the football game. So we agree on game one. All right. The next one on the list has an interesting storyline for sure. We've got the Chattooga Indians going over to play the Temple Tigers. Chattooga's 0-1 for the season. Temple's off to a 2-0 start. And Ian, series history-wise, Temple's 1-0. They played last year. That was the only meeting in the series. And Temple got the upper hand in that one. They won it 44-19. And I'll be honest, man, I'm going to let you pick this one first, but it kind of feels like it could be more of the same.
Yeah, the Indians are coming off that bye week. Temple's 2-0. They dismantled Pike County in week 1, 57-6, and then followed that up by drubbing Christian Heritage 41-13 last week. Those aren't pushovers that they beat up on. The Indians, they got handled by Lafayette. So I think Roone Gable will get things going. Once you get to region play, I think the Indians will find their footing. But Friday night is going to be a tough night for them.
The coach at Temple in his second year at the helm of the Tigers is a familiar name. We were just talking about Gordon Central, but Corey Nix is the head coach at Temple. And he's one of those guys that certainly built a reputation of having a team that comes out and plays with a tremendous amount of enthusiasm and fire and grit and all that kind of stuff. And, when he was at Gordon Central, they didn't post winning records in those couple of seasons, but it felt like that engine was starting to turn over. And he just had them playing with a certain level of fire that we hadn't seen before. So one of the things that I think you're going to see in this game, you can count on the Tigers are going to be aggressors. They're going to get out and they are going to come out and they're going to play some hard-nosed football. Chattooga had the week off last week after opening the season with their lopsided loss. So they've had a little extra time to heal bumps and bruises, prepare, and all that kind of stuff. But I really just don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I think that Temple's going to go up 3-0 to start the season.
Yeah, just a mismatch here.
Oh, absolutely. All right, let's move on to the next one. This one we're not picking, but we're going to talk about in great detail. And, Ian, is it appropriate to call this a rivalry game?
Yes. These two teams don't care for each other very much. Lions and Tigers this Friday up north, and like I said, there's no secret. There's no love between these Lions and Tigers. Christian Heritage is 0-2, and they haven't come close to tasting victory in either of their games this season. The Tigers, we talked about this in the first segment. Tough loss last week. This is a game that was tied 13-13. Darlington had some chances to score late in the first half, couldn't cash in, and then the third quarter just went sideways on them. It was all Sonoraville in the second half. But talking to Coach Groves after the game, one of the things that he brought up was the fact that the kids never quit. The effort remained all the way till the final whistle. You saw Miles Twyman break a big 76-yard touchdown with just under 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. The Tigers were still fighting. They looked like they recovered an onside kick. Unfortunately, they got it before it traveled 10 yards. For a minute, there was a glimmer of hope that they might be able to pull off a miracle. But good to see that they didn't quit. They're still getting into they're identifying who they are as a team under their new leader. I think this week of practice will have been spirited, to say the least. I can't wait to tune in and see what Coach Groves has to say tonight. But I think the Tigers are going to be really focused going on the road here. They've got talent, no doubt about it. They've got playmakers. Hopefully, Demarion Floyd has healed up a little bit. That knee was giving him trouble. Did not play much last week. But I think the Tigers are going to be focused and ready to play Friday night. And you and Gordon Powers are going to get yourself a good ball game.
That's right. Got a different color man this week, as we referenced earlier. Ian doing a little traveling this weekend. And so I thought, you know what, who can I get to help cover the game this week? I see Gordon Powers at the game every week. He's got a grandson on the team, Bodie Powers. And I thought that would be a tremendous amount of fun, because back in the day I used to cover a lot of model games back during the period of time when he was head coach there. So I interviewed him every week and all that kind of stuff. We have great rapport. So we'll miss you, but certainly looking forward to having the opportunity to call the game with Coach Powers. That's going to be a tremendous amount of fun.
Yeah, I think you got a good ball game ahead of you.
Oh, I agree. And it's going to be a great atmosphere, as we mentioned. These two teams, how do you describe it? I would say they just don't really like each other. Yeah. So it's going to be intense, as you want a football game to be. So one of the things I do want to mention that's interesting about the football program up at Christian Heritage, they've got a very, very familiar name in the state of Georgia in terms of football as their athletic director, Hal Lamb. And one of the things that's different about the team this year is it's the first year since they started their program that they don't have a Pogue as head coach. Because you remember the first 4 seasons they had Preston Pogue there as the head coach. He took off for North Murray. His brother Jay came in, took over the helm. He's been there ever since. Now he's going up to North Carolina. I was reading yesterday to start a new program up there. And they've hired Frank Barden as the head coach this year, which we got to experience. Yeah. Being at some games with Frank Barden coaching over the last couple of years because he was at St. Francis, and Darlington faced them a couple of times when we've been calling their games. And, a couple of years ago, St. Francis, I think, won one game. 2 years removed from that, last year, they went to the semifinals. And everybody around here remembers Frank Barden as the head coach at Cartersville for a long time, won a state championship in the late 90s. So the man can coach a football team.
Absolutely.
So there's no doubt that, with Coach Groves and his coaching staff at Darlington, Frank Barden, his staff at Christian Heritage, one of the things you can guarantee, this is going to be a well-coached football game.
Yeah, absolutely. Both teams are going to be hungry. I mean, Christian Heritage hasn't tasted victory yet. They're going to bring their A game Friday night, and Darlington, coming off a loss, is going to be hungry as well. So this is going to be a cat fight, no doubt about it.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be a great game, great atmosphere. Looking forward to calling that. You can listen to it on WLAQ and also watch it on the Darlington School YouTube channel. So make sure to tune in for coverage of that. We will get started at 6:45 with the re-airing of a show that takes place tonight, and that's the Coach Grove Show. And you can hear that show live tonight at 7 o'clock. As you referenced earlier, Coach Groves will be in this very studio and talking Darlington football. So excited about that. All right. Well, like I say, we recuse ourselves from picking the Darlington games. So we built up a lot of suspense, and we didn't tell you who we think's going to win. And now we're going to move on.
All right. Our next game is Woodland versus Model. They're traveling to Shannon, where they get to play on the new field turf.
That's right.
Yeah, this will be the first regular season game that they've played on their new turf. I've seen pictures and video. It looks really sharp. So I know the kids will be excited about that. They're coming off of an emotional win in Lindale. And then you've got Woodland, who drubbed Coosa last week. So the Wildcats are going to be coming in saying, hey, Floyd County Schools, we can handle these guys. But Model's a different animal, no doubt about it. You've got a quarterback battle here. Keith Sprayberry, he can sling the ball around the yard. So can Brelace Williams for the Woodland Wildcats. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of points in this game. Coach Haywood is trying to build a winning culture at Woodland, and Coach Honeycutt's already done that at Model. So I really think Woodland will challenge Model. And as long as Model doesn't come in with the inflated head from beating the Dragons, they slayed the Dragons, but you got to move on to the next one, stay focused. As long as they do that, I like Model to win. I'm picking the Blue Devils.
And I think with the experience that they have in their coaching staff, they'll be able to do just that, because these guys bring together a tremendous amount of combined wisdom, and I think Model's going to be ready and focused for this game, no question about it. But it is kind of hard to know what to think about it, because the Wildcats got drubbed by a big school in East Paulding in week 1, shut out Coosa, capitalized on turnovers and a rout. So you know that always, I know it becomes cliche, ball security is definitely going to be a really important factor in this game and any game for that matter. But the way that I view this Model team at this point in time, we'll see if that changes as the season goes on. They may be one of those teams that don't necessarily wow you on a stat sheet or something like that, but they're going to have a chance to win because they're opportunistic. They're going to make the most of every situation in every game. They're never going to take a down off. They're going to play hard. They have some playmakers on this team, and they're going to play excellent defense. And anytime you can do that and protect the football, you're going to have a chance to win. So in this game, will it be as close as last year? I kind of don't think it will be. I think Model's going to win the game, but they're definitely going to have to protect the football and, as you say, be focused in this game to come out with a victory, and can't leave any opportunity, there for the Wildcats. But I think they're going to play with a fire in this game.
I agree.
I'm excited to hear about the outcome of this one. So we both take the Model Blue Devils to win this game.
No differences so far.
No differences so far. Will we have one in this next matchup? We're not going to jump into it just yet, but to me, this is one of the, surprisingly, one of the more intriguing matchups of the week, and we'll talk more in detail about that when we come back from the break. But you've got number 8, Single A Division I Rabun County Wildcats going up to Adairsville to play the Adairsville Tigers, and the Wildcats kind of had an interesting start to the season, so this might have a little bit more intrigue than people might think. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a minute.
I agree.
All right, we're going to discuss that and more when we come back. This is This Week in Northwest Georgia Football we're glad to have you with us.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
Okay, we are back, and now we're going to talk about what I personally think is going to be one of the more interesting matchups of the weekend. The Rabun County Wildcats are traveling to Adairsville to take on the Tigers. Series history-wise, they've only played once. It was last year. And, boy, Rabun County lit up the scoreboard. Yeah. They scored 72 points en route to a 72-36 victory. However, Ian, Rabun County lost last week at Stevens County. This caught everybody's attention. They got shut out 35-0. And according to the Georgia High School Football Daily, this was the first time Rabun County was shut out for since 2013, a streak of 119 games, again, from the Georgia High School Football Daily. So, give us your take on this one.
Yeah, you can look back to last season. You can look at those 72 points. I remember talking about that game after it happened, and we were proud of Adairsville. They hung tough for a half and scored 36 and still got drubbed. But that loss to Stevens County. This is a Stevens County team that was 9-4 last season, so maybe Stevens County is a world beater this year. They're ready, and But to shut Rabun County out and beat a proud program like that, definitely is eye-catching. And it makes you wonder, has Rabun County taken a giant step back in 2023? Because they have been so good for so long. Adairsville, this is their second year under Coach Cudd. They had a great season last year. They've got good numbers. They've got a great fan base and a great atmosphere up there for Friday nights, and I know that the Tiger fans are going to show up and be ready and rowdy. They're coming off a 21-7 win over Cherokee Bluff last week, and let's face it, I don't care if Rabun County's taking a big step back. They're not Cherokee Bluff. They're going to come. They're going to be a little bit ticked off about getting shut out last week. So I think we get our questions answered about how far back has Rabun County gone. I think they're going to win this game, though. I think they come into Adairsville and they get the W.
I'm with you. Yeah. I've built up a lot of suspense, and I'll just go ahead and tell you, I'm picking Rabun County in this game, and it may be because of history. It may be just because of that reputation that they have. I thought about taking the upset special in this one, but I just keep looking down and seeing Rabun County Wildcats, and I just cannot do it. But as you mentioned, Adairsville, 10-win team last year, second-round playoff run that they put together. You referenced the 21-7 road victory at Cherokee Bluff last year at their place at Adairsville. It took them overtime to get the job done in that one, so they beat them by a couple of scores, and it sounds like they didn't really have any trouble doing that. So we'll see if Adairsville takes a step forward this year. How much has Rabun County declined, if any? There's so many unknowns. We're still at that crazy part of the season where you're figuring everybody out, so I really honestly just have no idea what to think about this football game. And so when I look down and I see Rabun County ranked in the top 10 and their reputation, I'm going to stick with Rabun County. But that's definitely a game to keep an eye on for upset potential.
Yeah.
Possibly.
No doubt about it. But,
so we'll see.
All right. Agreed.
Neither one of us can take it, but you never know.
All right, our next game on the docket is Sonoraville at Dalton, the Phoenix versus the Catamounts. We had the privilege of watching this Sonoraville team play last week, and they've got playmakers, no doubt about it. They've got a nice little 1-2 punch at running back. You've got Jackson Pate at quarterback, who made good decisions time and time again throughout that game against a good Darlington team. Dalton, you go back to 2021, they were really down. After Jameer Gibbs left town, they were really trying to find their identity there for a while. Had a new coach come in, and you saw that progress start to take shape. You knew Dalton wouldn't stay down. They were better last year. They were competing against some really good teams in a tough region. Again, we're still trying to figure things out. I think Sonoraville will find a way to score some points, but I think Dalton is getting back to the Dalton we know. They're at home. I'm going to take the Catamounts to win this game.
we'll see what happens. You know, Sonoraville can be a dangerous team because anytime you got a quarterback like Jackson Pate, who has some targets he likes to throw the ball to. You mentioned the tandem of running backs that he has at his disposal, and the fact that he can also run the football. You kind of got a three-headed monster that you got to try to figure out how to stop. But I think one of the things that is going to be different in this game is that Sonoraville's going up against a pretty big school. Yeah. And so in terms of numbers and things of that sort, I would check that box for Dalton. I think they're going to have a little bit more depth than you see with the Sonoraville Phoenix. So I think they kind of come back to earth a little bit in this game. One of the things that caught my attention is Dalton picked up a 35-14 Week 1 road win at North Murray before they had a bye. And North Murray was making headlines last week because Judson Petty set a state record in terms of receiving. He had 16 catches for a state record 360 yards, and he scored 4 touchdowns. Yeah. And I haven't seen them play football in recent years, but when I see names like Judson Petty, and I believe their quarterback is Skylar Williams, I recognize those names from their basketball team, having watched Model play them a few times this past year. And they got some athletes there at that school. There's no question about it. So that was a good win for Dalton, and that kind of tells me that they're going to match up against the Sonoraville Phoenix team. So I'm with you on this one. I see it the same way. I'm going to take Dalton to pick up the victory in this game playing at home.
All right.
All right. So we agree on that one. We'll go ahead and pick another one. And Cedartown, I got to hit the horn. Cedartown's one of those teams we're still figuring out at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're traveling to play the Sequoia Chiefs. Callaway is a proud program. I mean, they won a state championship in 2020. We talked about this game last week. Cedartown struggling to score against Rockmart. How much did they lose on offense? We knew that they could stop you, but could they score? And last week the answer was no. They lost 27-10 on the road to Callaway. It was a little bit. I wasn't surprised they lost. I was surprised they lost by 17 points. Would you agree with me there?
Oh, no doubt about it. And it was one of those games we talked about last week that it was hard to know what each team had going in because Callaway was a team that in 2020 won a state championship, but then they kind of dropped off a little bit. And you knew they have a proud program, but sometimes picking these games, especially early on, you don't really know what their roster looks like, what kind of experience they have, and what they're working with and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely think that watching what's happened with Cedartown over the course of the first couple of games of the season, they've got some holes to fill from last year's team that played for a state championship. They're going to be a very, very good team. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of strides they make throughout the year as they try to find their new identity, with some new personnel and all that kind of stuff that everybody has to. But that one did surprise me last week that it was as lopsided as it was.
Well, the emotional win in week 1 against Rockmart and then this loss, what do you need? You need a get-right game.
Yep.
This is a good program to have a get-right game. Sequoia, I don't think they're a threat at all. I think Cedartown's defense will shut them down, and we'll see Cedartown finally get rolling on offense. They get that running game going, put up some points. They win this one big.
I'm with you. It's been a long time, 2018, since Sequoia posted a winning record, and they're off to a tough start. And this is something that Cedartown really can take advantage of and work some things out and hopefully kind of grow some confidence in the new situation there as they move throughout the season, get some rhythm going, as you talked about. So I'm with you on this one. I don't think there's much to this one. I think Cedartown gets the job done.
All right. So far, we are lockstep here, man.
I know. So at this point in time, unless we've got a difference between the Creekview Grizzlies and the Calhoun Yellow Jackets, Allatoona Buccaneers at Cartersville Canes, and the big one that everybody's talking about, Carrollton Trojans at Barron Stadium playing against the Rome Wolves. As far as like matchups that people get excited about around here, They don't get much better than that.
No.
So we've got that one to talk about coming up in a little bit. But the first thing we're going to do is take another break and catch our breath so we can get ready to pick these last few games and have some final comments. We're glad you're riding with us today on our Facebook Live feed and also our YouTube channel. If you have not done so already, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, like us, follow us on Facebook, so you can keep up with all the fun things we've got going on at the radio station in terms of our sports coverage and beyond. We've got some other video programs unrelated to sports that we're going to be launching in the coming months, which we're pretty excited about. So Well, we'll return. We're glad you're with us. Here's a word from Riverside Auto Group, has been our sponsor of this show for a long time. We'll be back.
Shop for your next car, truck, or SUV at Riverside Auto Group. Check out riversideautogroup.com today to browse their selection or visit with them in person at Riverside Chevrolet Buick GMC in Rome, Riverside Toyota in Rome, and the all-new Riverside Buick GMC Cadillac in Cartersville. Locally owned and operated by the Welburn family since 1974. That's Riverside Auto Group. Visit riversideautogroup.com.
Creekview at Calhoun. The Grizzlies and the Yellow Jackets going toe-to-toe. First game at the Reeve this season. Calhoun's been on the road. They lost the first one in a tough defensive struggle to Blessed Trinity, but then they bounced back and won a big game on the road last week. We both picked them to do so. So I know the Yellow Jackets fans are going to show up in droves and be ready for this game. Creekview, good squad, 2-0. They're looking to pull the upset, but to me, the advantage Calhoun has here is they've played really stiff competition in week 1 and 2, and it's the first game at home. I think that there's going to be so much energy in that stadium that Calhoun comes out and responds, and I think they win this one big.
And, you know, you can't say enough. You referenced the home atmosphere that you get at a Calhoun Yellow Jackets football game. It is really special to go to a game at the Reeve. It is awesome. If you've never had the opportunity to do that and you're a football fan, what you been doing? You need to go and check it out because it's awesome. But you know, Calhoun leads the series 1-0. They won this game pretty close last year, 26-21. You mentioned the Grizzlies starting strong, 2-0, but that was lopsided home victories over Cambridge and Hillgrove. This is an entirely different situation for them. And the concern a couple of weeks ago when we looked at that Blessed Trinity game for Calhoun was they couldn't get the ball moving on the ground. Yeah. And anytime you can't get the ball moving on the ground, you're going to have some problems in a high school football game. Last week, they were able to get past that, scored a bunch of points in that game. Caden Williams rushed for 76 yards on 15 carries. You had a pretty good passing night for Trade Townsend. I just think that's a team that's going to get better and better and get in rhythm with their offense as the season goes on. So I'm with you on this one. I think Calhoun's going to win the game without too much trouble, and they'll have the home fans on their side. So we agree. This is getting grim. I got to have an upset or something.
I know. Allatoona travels to Cartersville. You know what can take down a Buccaneer? A hurricane.
Oh.
And these Buccaneers, they aren't that seaworthy. So I'm imagining that this offense that has kind of struggled out of the gate for Cartersville as they identify new playmakers is going to get rolling tonight. High winds are in the forecast. Cartersville wins this one big.
I'm with you, and I think one of the things that kind of does not bode well for the Buccaneers in this game is the Hurricanes only beating Jonesboro 24-13. And I know that the couple of touchdowns that were scored by Jonesboro in that game were kind of late in the game after all the starters were out under some kind of strange circumstances, all that kind of stuff. But I kind of expected you'd see like 50-0 or something like that in that score. And so what normally happens the game after a game like that for the Hurricanes, they turn it up. And I think they're going to turn it up on the Allatoona Buccaneers in this football game. So this one, even though Allatoona has competitive losses against North Paulding and Kell, some pretty proud programs there, there's just a lot pointing to this not being a close game. So I'm kind of with you on this one. It is one of those things when you see it, Allatoona and Cartersville, that can have some intrigue to it. But I think it's going to be a long night for the Buccaneers.
I agree.
Oh, man. It comes down to this. Will there be any differences in this week's picks? I don't know, man. There could be.
Well,
let's find out.
Huge game at Barron Stadium Friday night between Carrollton and Rome. They don't get much bigger than this. Rome is basically, this is the litmus test for them. You know, you got Joey King coming to town. Barron Stadium will be packed. I think the Carrollton fans will travel well. So it's going to be a busy night on Broad Street. Get there early. Get your seat. We know Rome has a great defense. They shut out Cass. They gave up a junk touchdown to Lithonia, much to the delight of our good friend Dave, and who I did not know. I did not know that Dave Corbin was a Lithonia alumni, but I found that out last Friday. and I was happy for them that they scored. But this Rome defense, they're great. Are they elite? We find out against Carrollton. This Carrollton team lost by 5 points to Langston Hughes, last year's state champion that beat up on the Wolves pretty bad in that semifinal game. So this Carrollton team is absolutely an elite squad. We know about Joey King. We know they have weapons everywhere, but it's Juju, right? USC bound quarterback here, Juju Lewis. He's a playmaker. Can the Wolves disrupt him? Last year, Carrollton scored 23 points. And if you'd told me that that's all they were going to score, I would have picked the Wolves to win last year. If they can do that again, they've got a chance to win, but they've got to keep Carrollton to under 30. And Reese Fountain and the offense, they're going to have to play elite too. Rome is going to have to play their best game to win this. And I think they fall short.
I gotcha. Yep, I can definitely see the thought process on that. Juju was 11 of 17 passing for 241 yards and 3 touchdowns. Last week, they can run the ball. They've got a great defense. They really have the entire package. Well, on the other side, what do we know about Rome at this point? Well, we know they're not going to give you much on defense because you're going to have to earn the heck out of every single yard that you get. Your question was, we know they're good. Are they elite? We're going to find out. One of the questions is can they move the ball on the ground in this football game against Carrollton's defense? I think they can. I think they can get the push that they need to get a seam, to get their running backs going. And I know we talk a lot about Juju Lewis, but Rome has a very experienced, very talented quarterback as well, and Reese Fountain. And he's got some targets that he feels comfortable in sync with, it looks like so far. So I think he's going to be able to distribute the ball. Special teams are always going to be a factor in a game like this. I do think Rome's going to have some things go their way in this game, but they're playing it at home. They've got it at Barron Stadium. They have some depth. They've got some experience. They'll be well coached. There's no doubt that John Reed and his coaching staff will have some wrinkles, I think, prepared for this game to kind of throw a wrench in some of the plans for Carrollton. So I definitely see why Carrollton would be the favorite team in this game, but I'm going to gamble this week, maybe a little bit. I'm going to take Rome. I believe in this team. I think they have the pieces to get the job done. Can they put it all together and come away with the victory? I think them playing at home, there's a possibility. So I'm going to take Rome. I know I'm taking a little bit of a chance on that one, but who knows? I may come back and have tied this thing up.
I think Rome absolutely has a chance. And I may not be remembering correctly, but I think they turned the ball over early last year and fell behind in the game to Carrollton and just couldn't get things going on offense. So if they keep a clean slate, don't turn the ball over, play great defense, hit Juju early, get in his face a little bit, let him know you're going to be there all night. And if they can disrupt Carrollton's offense and get them out of rhythm, then I think Rome has a great chance to win. I really do. It was a tough one to pick.
But they can't dig themselves a hole early and play from behind, because that is just a recipe for absolute disaster. So I'm with you. They've got to strike first, strike hard. What is it?
Strike first, strike hard. No mercy.
No mercy. That's right. Yeah. And again, I think we referenced this at the beginning of the show. You may be wondering why we haven't talked much to Allmerchie or Pepperell or Rockmart or Trine. It's because all of those teams have their bye. And we should also mention that coming up next week, Darlington will have their bye. So you got some early season bye weeks taking place for a lot of teams.
Rest up. Get ready for region play, boys. It's coming.
Enjoy your Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
Have some barbecue, all that kind of stuff. Well, man, we've still got a few minutes left of the show. So any other thoughts you'd like to offer about the high school football season or any college games that you want to reference this weekend?
I was looking at the slate of college games, and we've gotten so spoiled on Labor Day weekend with all these marquee matchups, and it's really a little lackluster this year. I'm excited. Florida plays Utah. I'll be tuned into that Thursday night.
That was a fun game last year.
Yeah, it was. We'll see what Florida has. Expectations are pretty low in year 2 under Billy Napier. Can they go out there and steal one? Cam Rising's playing quarterback for the Utes. Will he start? Will he play at all? He's coming off an ACL injury in the Rose Bowl. That could make a big difference.
He threw a pick in that game last year.
He did. Great, exciting game in the end zone.
I know you were. The Utes in that game and almost got it. And I had all kind of puns I was going to use. with,
What's a Ute?
Right,
What is a
Mojo
Ute?
Rising, all that kind of stuff,
Well, it went my way last year. I hope it does again this year. You got a great game between North Carolina, South Carolina, LSU, and Florida State Longhorns. So there's some good games, but we've just been spoiled with all these really awesome non-conference matchups the last few years, and it's not quite up to that level in 2023. But college football is getting started, and I'm really, really excited about that.
Well, I'm curious to get your take on this, and I know that it was Notre Dame playing Navy, but Sam Hartman looked really good for the Irish this last week, and you don't have a big sample to look at this point, but the Irish look pretty good.
I mean, I'm surprised the pollsters didn't move them to number one after their victory over Navy.
I totally expected some sort of snide comment like that.
Well, I mean, my whole life Notre Dame's been overrated, so drubbing the midshipmen should have got him in the top 5 easily. Sam Hartman's great. He was a great pickup. To me, he was the best quarterback in the portal. He's a good fit for Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman seems to be a really good coach. So, yeah, the Irish will be dangerous, no doubt about it, especially, their schedule sets up pretty well for them this year.
Of course, one of the things, and I know we were texting back and forth during that game a little bit this past weekend that I was excited about as a Jacksonville State University alum. They have now entered the FBS era of the program, and in their first FBS game, Conference USA, they play UTEP, and they picked up a victory there and sealed the win with a timely interception at the end of the game. And it was a really interesting game. It was like I saw a graphic they put on the screen right before the game kicked off, and it said on the turf it was 120 degrees because it was 99 to 100 at kickoff. And I was thinking about going to that game, but when I looked at that weather forecast, I was like, there ain't no way.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. I half expected you to say, yeah, I'm over in Jacksonville. I decided to come to the game. But, yeah, that heat last weekend was
They had a good turnout,
intense.
though.
Yeah,
considering
absolutely.
all the heat.
Absolutely. I mean, you're playing big boy football now. You're in one of the group of 5 conferences with a chance to maybe advance somewhere else when all the dust settles. But, old Rich Rod had it going. UTEP's a good team. That was an entertaining game from start to finish.
Oh, no doubt. And, of course, Zion Webb is the quarterback for Jacksonville State. And when they ran him out there, I'm like, man, that guy, I mean, how old is he? He's a 7th-year senior they were talking about.
Wow.
So he's been there forever. He sat behind Zarek Cooper for a while. But they look really good, and it's going to be interesting to see how Rich Rod is able to develop that program in the FBS era. I know they've got a lot of work to do to be able to compete with some of the teams that they're going to face, but they're an exciting brand of football. I like the hurry-up, the no-huddle hurry-up offense that he's famous for. And get over there to Burgess Snow and watch them. They're fun to watch play.
Yeah, there were a couple.
We got a local kid on the team, too. Sean Brown, a tight end, number 17, was at Tennessee, transferred over a couple of years ago. So you can see him.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Saturday was entertaining. The Vanderbilt-Hawaii game was pretty good. So I'm just glad to have college football back. High school football, college football, the NFL is right behind it. Had my fantasy draft on Sunday, so it is here. Pigskin time, baby.
All right. We've got about 2 minutes left, so let's wrap it up talking about something that I have in my hands, fresh off the press. It's the V3. It's become a tradition here, folks. SEC preview. Where can they get them?
Yeah, that's year 12, if you can believe that. So you can pick them up. You can come by our office on Broad Street, 417 Broad Street. We've got a magazine rack right through the double doors. Take as many as you like. We'll restock them. Or you can pick them up at Smoothie King, Mellow Mushroom, Schroeder's, Doug's Deli. There's several places where we've got them stocked. CMP Training, River Remedy Brewery. Swing in, grab a copy for you and your friends, and enjoy me and Jim Allred probably picking them all wrong, other than Georgia and Alabama. We're both fairly sure Georgia and Alabama will be playing in Atlanta come December.
And we're only a couple of weeks now into the high school football season, so do you have any of the high school preview magazines left?
Yeah, very few, but I actually went around and scooped some up while I was taking the SEC previews out just so I could snag a few. So if there is anybody out there that wants to pick up our high school preview, there's 15 teams from around the region that we have highlighted in there. I will be filling up the rack at V3 with those as well. So stop by, grab as many copies as you like.
All right, one difference. I picked Rome, you picked Carrollton, and we'll see what happens next week.
We will.
Well, thank you for your time, man. Safe travels to you.
I will be tuning in from Colorado. I can't wait to hear the broadcast.
And we want to let everybody know we appreciate you for tuning in. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, WLAQ Radio. Also, like us, follow us on Facebook so you can keep up with what's going on. And then tune in this evening at 7 o'clock as we have the third episode of the Coach Grove Show with Wayne Groves, the head coach of the Darlington football team. We're looking forward to catching up with him and talking about this week's matchup. Well, that's going to put a wrap on today's show. Hope you have a great day, everybody. Thanks for being here.